Recording in progress.
Are we ready? Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There was a plan, and now there's a different plan. Get used to it, Prabhus. The plan was that this morning after the morning class there would be a yagya, and the new plan is that yagya will be Tuesday evening 6 p.m. And guess who brought about that change of plan? You guessed, Mr. COVID. Without the details, it's going to be Tuesday evening, 6 p.m., Tuesday Central Time, 6 p.m. Now, the topic for this morning was connected to the yagya that was going to take place after this morning discussion, the gift of the holy name. Before I give an introduction to this morning's topic, I'd like to do a little refresh on what we discussed yesterday about Puja. Some of you remember, I'm sure, different renderings from different texts. The text that we heard yesterday was from Mathura Mahatmya. The text describes the sources, Jiva Goswami Sandarbhas, saying that in Kubja's previous life, she was a princess. She heard from Narada Muni about about the personality of Godhead. She wanted the personality of Godhead as her husband. That would not be possible, Ramachandra. So then she did austerities, and the message was she would take birth as Kubja, a hunchback, and Krishna would lift her, straighten her hunchback, make her beautiful, and she would become married. No, she's not listed amongst the 16,108 queens, but Krishna associated with her in Mathura in a very confidential way. Now, there was mention, and I'm going to show you what the Garga Samhita says, which means, a different day of Brahma. This is just extracted from an English translation of Garga Samhita. Gazing at Lord Rama in the Panchavati forest, a demoness named Shurpanakha fell passionately in love with him, seeing that Lord Ram had vowed to accept only one wife and had not fallen in love with her, Ravana's sister Shurpanakha angrily ran to devour Sita Devi. At this, Lord Ram's younger brother Lakshmana became angry and with sharp-edged sword quickly cut away her ears and nose. Her nose cut away, she went to Lanka and told Ravana what had happened. Then, unhappy at heart, she went to Pushkar Tirtha, wishing to get Lord Ram as her husband for 10,000 years. Shurpanakha stayed underwater and meditated on Lord Shiva. Pleased by this, Lord Shiva, who is the master of the gods and the husband of Uma, came to Pushkar Tirtha and said, "Ask for a boon." Shurpanakha said, "You are the great master of the gods. You are dear to the great saints. You have the power to give all benedictions. Please grant me that Sri Ram will become my husband." Lord Shiva said, "Oh, demoness, please listen. At the present time, your boon cannot be granted. In the future, at the end of Dwapara Yuga in Mathura city, it will be granted to you. Of this there is no doubt." Sri Narada said, because this is Narada speaking to King Bahulashva. "Oh, noble-hearted one, in Mathura city, the demoness Shurpanakha, who could assume any form at will, became the girl named Puja from Garga Samhita." So this is just a little detail on something that was mentioned lightly yesterday. So now for today's topic, the gift of the holy name. Now the plan that got changed by Mr. COVID was to have initiation in Gayatri mantras this morning. And one very wonderful text, very profound, very elevated, very high literature, is Brihat Bhagavatamrita, that describes the power of the Gopal mantra, or Madan Gopal mantra. There's okay. If you hear some noise, don't worry about it. It's a nice gentleman that's shoveling the sidewalk. And we'll just carry on as if he's not even there. He'll finish soon. So here's a text from Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5:203, where he writes in one purport, Sri Sanatan Goswami Prabhu, the teacher of the science of devotional service, wrote several books, of which the Brihat Bhagavatamrita is very famous. Anyone who wants to know about the subject matter of devotees' devotional service in Krishna must read this book. Now, must read this book is a pretty heavy statement. Better read Prabhupada's books before you read this one, because this one is very, very elevated, extremely wonderful and extremely elevated literature. But we're going to do a little overview or quick summary of the role of the Madan Gopal mantra in this narration, part 2, because there's part 1, but we're going to touch on part 2. Both part 1 and part 2 are a description by Maharaj Parikshit to his mother, Uttara, before the snake bird appeared. There you see in the image, there's a snake bird biting Maharaj Parikshit, his body bursting in flames, etc. According to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, when Shukadeva Goswami finished his 7-day narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, he left. And the snake bird hadn't come yet. Uttara came to him. His mother apparently was in the audience, and she heard and basically said, I could not follow everything. Could you give me a quick summary of everything that you just heard for 7 days? Maharaj Pariksit said, well, this isn't really the best time for asking such a question, but because it's such a wonderful question of my mother, let me give you a summary. So Brihat Bhagavatamrita is a summary or commentary on the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus its 3 topics: living entity, devotional service, and the Supreme Lord. That's how part 1 begins, and then part 2 begins. Oh, that was really good. Can you say more? Now there's another sub-story to this, but that's okay. So Maharaj Parikshit's name is mentioned even directly in the course of part 1 and part 2. Her words, please extract the essence of what Shukadeva has taught you. And so the part 2 of Brihat Bhagavatamrita begins with a Mathura Brahmana who had been living in Assam, worshipping Kamakya Devi, what's the name of Durga, who is worshipped very prominently in this particular place in Assam. In a dream, the Mathura Brahmana, having pleased Devi, Kamakya Devi, very much, in a dream, she gave him the Madan Gopal mantra. That's a Krishna mantra. And he, from chanting that mantra, started to become very strongly desirous to see Madan Gopal. That's the effect of the mantra that we are told in Scripture. And if we chant nicely, that's the effect of Gayatri mantra. One wants to directly interact with, see, be in the presence of, serve Madan Gopal. He became inspired. Maybe it was Kamakya Devi told him, go to Vrindavan, there's where you'll find Madan Gopal. So he went to Vrindavan, he went by the side of Keshigat, and there he saw a young cowherd boy, thinking, this must be Gopal, and he fell at his feet, as you see in the painting. And then he inquired. Good inquiry. From various sources I have heard of various goals and various methods to achieve them, but still I cannot definitely decide what goal I should strive for and what I should do to reach it. Doesn't this sound like the question that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented to Ramananda Roy? What's the goal of life and the means to achieve it? Same question. So that's Mathura Brahmana presenting this question, and the rest of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita is Gopal Kumar, that's the young boy. So Gopal Kumar decides, normally one doesn't speak about oneself, but I can't think of a better way to respond to the Mathura Brahmana than to tell my life story. So he explained his life story in various ways. He revealed truths that he came to know from Srimati Radharani, we'll hear at the end, that he, the Mathura Brahmana, was chanting the very same mantra that he was chanting, the Madan Gopal mantra, because Radharani told him. That's how elevated is this Gopal Kumar, very intimately associated with Srimati Radharani, although he's a cowherd boy. So he revealed some things about the Mathur Brahman to help convince the Mathur Brahman to take seriously his words. And he started describing his childhood as a cowherd boy, no appropriate name. Gopal means cowherd boy. Madan Gopal was his name. Madan Gopal. So he was born in Vrindavan and herding cows, as little boys that are born in Vrindavan may do. And one day he saw this very elevated Brahmana. He became attracted. He began approaching him and associating with him and trying to serve him. One day he requested to receive Gayatri Mantra from him. And one day, meeting me on the shore of the Jamuna, he embraced me and spoke in this way: "My dear child, if you want to fulfill all your desires, please bathe at Keshigat and then accept from me this mercy of the Lord of the universe." Now, in bold letters there is, "if you want to fulfill all your desires." Well, conditioned souls have many different desires, don't they? And this Madan Gopal mantra has the capacity to fulfill all of them. But then Madan Gopal mantra has a special potency and tendency, nature, as Krishna does, to draw the chanter of the mantra, who chants properly and attentively, etc., to become attracted to his personal service and his personal association, etc. The goal of life is prompted or stirred by the mantra. So he gave him the mantra. He didn't say a whole lot of things. After giving him the mantra, he just was swooned in ecstasy, got up and left. And that's what he heard. He got the mantra, and he heard that it's going to fulfill all your desires. So he chanted the mantra, and from chanting the mantra, he became very eager to see the Lord of his Madan Gopal mantra, just like the Mathur Brahman had the same experience. So Gopal Kumar traveled here and there searching for the Lord of his Madan Gopal mantra, and he came across a Brahmana who was worshipping Shalagram Shila, and he thought this was really wonderful, but then when he saw him put him in a box, he thought that's not very wonderful. The Brahmana said, if you want to see something wonderful, there's a wonderful king that worships with great opulence. You go. He went to see the king. He became the king of a Vaishnava's kingdom. The man had no son. He made Madan Gopal the king, and he enjoyed great opulence, but it wasn't fulfilling. And so he went to Puri to see Lord Jagannath. And when he went to see Lord Jagannath, it was similar to Lord Chaitanya entering into the temple of Jagannath. He was just ecstatic. And Madan Gopal! And the guards stopped him. Wait a minute. And he calmed down. So he stayed for some time in Jagannath Puri, chanting his Madan Gopal mantra always, and seeing Lord Jagannath, and eventually the king of Puri made him the king of Puri for 1 year. Watch out for that Madan Gopal mantra. Who knows what's going to happen. And one day, he met his guru for a second time. He went by the sea, and he happened to see his guru from a distance, who was in a state of ecstasy, and he approached him and received instructions from him. Now, I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to unplug this because sometimes the system decides to jump around. So here's what his guru said. The nice painting that you can't see. They're seated by the side of the sea, by the ocean. In the background, there's some boats, some green foliage, and in the far distance is the dome of the Jagannath temple. So here's the second instruction, besides it will fulfill all desires. My dear boy, whatever you desire, sankalpa, while chanting your mantra, by its power you will fully achieve. Similar message. Indeed, you will attain more than you desire. This chanting, please understand, is another form of service to Lord Sri Jagannath. Have faith in this and never give up your japa. May you develop the right mentality for tasting the mantra's fruit. Now, while being in Jagannath Puri, Madan Gopal was really attracted to Lord Jagannath. And he was becoming a little complacent in his Madan Gopal mantra. And his guru came because he knew he was becoming complacent. The text reads, the all-knowing guru perceived that Gopal Kumar was neglecting his mantra and so helped him achieve his desire by correcting his neglect. That's the second time he had association, and it was a course correction purpose, repeating the same principle, but never give up your japa, never give up chanting your mantra, never give up chanting, no matter what. And that stuck. He went through many circumstances where, we'll hear, he never gave up chanting his mantra. And a benediction. May you develop the right mentality for tasting the mantra's fruit. So let's see what happens. Probably it'll jump around again. I'm going to connect one more time, and we'll see if it jumps like it did before. Probably it will. Yeah, there it goes. So there's a nice painting in the right corner, and we're going to go on to the next slide. Hopefully we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, there's Lord Jagannath. He became king of Puri for 1 year, and he was feeling Madan Gopal. So Jagannath appeared in a dream and instructed him, go to Mathura, the place where he saw his spiritual master first and received the mantra. While in Vrindavan, he was chanting his mantra and, had desires. And one of those desires was to experience higher realms. And so he was promoted to the heavenly planets and in fact became King Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. And there you see, there are some sages that came to visit. There's somebody whispering in his ear because he didn't know exactly what the etiquette was. But everyone rose when this group of sages came and reverently welcomed the sages. With amazement I looked on as all the demigods and celestial sages and even their spiritual master and Lord Vishnu himself worshipped those sages reverently. I was a new resident of Swarga, my heart distracted by the bliss of serving Lord Vishnu, so I failed to recognize the sages. But at the urging of my companions, I too worshipped them. So after staying, this fulfills all desires, right? So he went from there. It wasn't meaningful, sufficient because he still wasn't seeing Madan Gopal. He went to higher planets. It describes his visit to Maharloka. Maharloka is a place where two things. It's grahastas who have no material attraction for male-female, but they're married, and their main function is performance of yagyas, and they really, really, really like yagyas because when they perform the yagya from the fire, Lord Vishnu appears with his arms outstretched to receive their oblations. And then when the yagya is over, he recedes. So they start another yagya, and he liked it a lot. But it wasn't Madan Gopal, and so he went above Maharloka to Tapaloka, and there he saw the four Kumaras. And the four Kumaras, along with others who were residents in Tapaloka, were engaged in meditation. And he looked for Madan Gopal, but he was being advised by Pipalayana. Pipalayana, who's Pipalayana? Pipalayana is one of the Navayogendras, and so apparently he resides in Tapaloka, among other places. He moves around a lot. They move. Just meditate, and you can see Madan Gopal, and they do this whole, because that's the function in Tapaloka. It's celibates only, and the main activity is, well, two activities. It's meditation, extended meditation, because in their extended meditation they see the form of the Lord. In their meditation, it's not silent. It's not becoming blank, empty-minded, because that's a type of meditation, or looking at a candle or something. They see the form of the Lord. So they're fully satisfied. They have a very interesting argument. There's a nice text I'm going to read. There's 9 processes of devotional service, and amongst them is dhyana, the process of meditation. And if you want to see the Lord and you can't focus, then you can go to the Gandhamandana hill and you can see Narayan. The 4 Kumaras explained the process of meditation, and his japa improved. And even sometimes in his meditation, he was able to see Madan Gopal in his meditation. So he liked it. But then he came to this conclusion that seeing in meditation wasn't the same as seeing him in person. So, but he liked it because he could, it was not just he was feeling peaceful, but he could see the Lord. But here's a text. Now it's jumping again. I'll just read the text. For fear of being ungrateful, because this is the gratitude weekend, right? For fear of being ungrateful, I never gave up my japa, nor for a moment was I unable to forget Brajabhumi. Remember, it's Gopal Kumar speaking to the Mathura Brahmin in Vrindavan. So I couldn't, I was instructed to never stop chanting. And so I can't be ungrateful and stop by disobeying the order of my spiritual master. And the Sanatana Goswami's commentary reads, From Gopal Kumar's point of view, the life of tending cows in Vrindavan was more attractive than any other circumstance, including residence in the Nandana Vana, that's the gardens of Lord Indra. As long as he continued chanting his mantra, this attitude could not be covered by illusion, because the natural effect of Sri Madan Gopal's mantra was to attract the heart to the Lord's sports in Vrindavan. That's a theme that arises when one wants to see him, and one's heart becomes naturally attracted to Krishna's pastimes. Again, wanting to avoid being ungrateful, Gopal Kumar never stopped chanting. He might justify abandoning the mantra only after attaining its final goal. If he were to stop chanting before then, he would not discover the mantra's full benefits. Thus, to stop the chanting prematurely would amount to ingratitude. For without having bothered to receive all the mantra's benefits, how could he properly acknowledge them? I find this is one of the most powerful messages in the whole of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. So I'll just slow down a little bit. In ISKCON, we receive the Hare Krishna mantra, and after some time, Gayatri mantras, one of which is this Madan Gopal mantra. And when this gratitude, when you receive something, you should acknowledge that something, the cognitive, affective, and motivational. The motivational part for Gopal Kumar is when you receive such a gift as mantra, then how can you properly acknowledge the mantra without having experienced what it can bestow, the fullness of what it can bestow? We experience something, that's why we keep chanting our mantras. But the fullness, and that was the impetus, very important impetus, of being grateful, aspiring to be grateful in fullness, is to experience. Then his heart is able to acknowledge the fullness of what's been given to him. Powerful. Think about it. Most of us are chanting Hare Krishna. Probably all of us are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And then it's meant to bring something about, an experience of Krishna. The coverings removed and Krishna awakening, Krishna Bhakti awakening. So ingratitude would be not to achieve the fullness of that mantra, or the Madan Gopal mantra. Ingratitude and gratitude. We heard these two terms in the very first class. Kritagya and Kritagna, or Gne. So, grateful, ungrateful. It's a teaching in Brihat Bhagavatamrita in relation to mantra chanting that teaches us what gratitude is like and what ingratitude is like. So as you see on the screen, this is 2:2:28. Remember, he's in Tapaloka. And so he stays because he's attracted. He likes seeing Madan Gopal in his meditation while chanting his mantra. However, nevertheless, I stayed there for some time, attracted by the display of great power, out of respect for my Guru's order, and because I had seen how effective my mantra was, I kept on chanting. And the commentary, the atmosphere of Tapaloka weakened Gopal Kumar's resolve to see the Lord. But still he persevered in chanting his japa. His Guru had ordered him never to stop chanting. And Gopal Kumar did not want to be ungrateful by disobeying. So he didn't stop, nor did he stop the hankering, the fruit of that mantra, because he was given this benediction, may you taste the fruit of this mantra, which is an eagerness, an indomitable eagerness to see Madan Gopal. So that was in Tapaloka. And after some time, he goes further up in the Vedic cosmology picture of the universe. He goes up to Brahmaloka. While in Brahmaloka, he experienced a partial devastation that comes at the end of the day of Brahma. And then Brahma advised him, so he returned to Vrindavan, where he met his guru for the third time. Now we'll see if we start jumping around again. Yay, okay. So there's Gopal Kumar with his guru, meeting his guru for the third time. And where was he? He was in Vrindavan, because Lord Brahma sent him back to Vrindavan. And then he met for his third time. And this third time, his guru gave him some detailed instructions in how, because before, it specifically says, when he received the mantra, that was it. He didn't know if he was to chant it out loud or silently. Should he chant it at certain intervals of the day? Should he chant it all day long? There was no details. Now, after all this far-out experience, he's getting some details. How to worship Madan Gopal through the mantra. And then his spiritual master gives the final parting instruction. Because you are very dear to me, I have given you everything I possess. By the power of this mantra, you will understand and attain everything on your own. Now, on your own doesn't mean speculation, or doesn't mean lots of things. He, Gopal Kumar, got lots of association, because all of this association is the mercy of Madan Gopal, including his guru. We'll hear shortly about who his guru is, because we don't, so far, he doesn't even know his name. So his guru got up and just disappeared. So Gopal Kumar has this third and final instruction from his guru, saying he'll understand and attain everything going forward in time. So he's in Vrindavan, and a series of events happen, and he wants to go to the spiritual world. And so he passes, he just like projects his body, he travels through past all those planets that he visited and resided in for some time, Indraloka and Maharloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka, and penetrated through the coverings of the universe on his way to Vaikuntha. And look who came. There's Lord Shiva riding on Nandi, and there's Parvati, etc. And there's a host of people doing music and offering flowers and honoring Lord Shiva. There's some exchange between them. Fulfills all desires, right? And he continued on his journey, and lo and behold, he met the Vishnu Dutas. And look, there's the four Kumaras again. And the Vishnu Dutas were heading into the material world to give their association to the residents of this covered region, the universe that we reside in. There you see Lord Shiva on the left. You see Gopal Kumar little boy standing in the foreground, and assistance of the Shradutas and their swan carrier, carrying them wherever they want to go. Eventually he reached Vaikuntha. And when he reached Vaikuntha, he came to the gates of Vaikuntha. And when he was at the gates of Vaikuntha, he saw someone entering into the gates of Vaikuntha that looked just like Narayana. 4 arms, beautiful features, etc., etc. I then beheld someone coming and entering that great city. I thought he was Sri Hari, and I cried out again and again, "Oh Lord, protect me," and bowed down to him. But he covered both his ears and gestured for me to stop. And this happened again and again and again as different persons would come, and it's a very amazing experience standing at the gates of Vaikuntha, what was coming and going through the gates of Vaikuntha. Eventually he was brought inside, and he describes what his experience is, what he saw, and so forth. And eventually he went right before Lord Narayan. There you see Lord Narayan seated on a throne with Lakshmi Devi. And look down below. There's a number of boys playing upon flutes. He was astonished. They very affectionately encouraged me, gained my trust, pulled me in their midst, and urged me to play my flute. The idea is Lord Narayan wanted Gopal Kumar to be peaceful, and he knew his mood. He's a cowherd boy mood. So he just had some other cowherd boys join him in playing their flutes and dancing, and they had a really good, transcendentally wonderful experience together. And then after some time, he liked it there. The Lord of Vaikuntha spoke to him in a private place. Welcome, welcome, my dear boy. I am fortunate, most fortunate to meet you here. For so long, I have been eager to see you, my dear friend. You have passed many lifetimes without paying any attention to me at all. For so long, hope had me dancing like a fool, thinking, perhaps in this lifetime, or this, or this, or this, he will finally return and turn his face toward me. But I could find no pretext on which to bring you to my abode, dear brother. First it's my boy, my dear boy, then it's my dear brother, my dear friend, all these affectionate terminologies coming from the Lord of Vaikuntha. Very special. No cowherd boys in Vaikuntha. But, for Gopal Kumar's sake, he did. You showed me no mercy. I could find no pretext on which to bring you to my abode, dear brother, and still follow the timeless laws that I myself have created. You showed me no mercy, and as I considered this, I grew impatient, full of anxiety to receive your favor. Krita. Remember? So I transgressed my eternal code of conduct and arranged for you to take your current birth, dear boy, in that divine district of Govardhan, my most beloved abode. Narayan saying, I myself became your guru, known by the name Jayanta. So now he's hearing his guru's name for the first time. And he's finding out that it's Lord Narayan who became his guru personally. Today, you have at last fulfilled the desire I've harbored for so long. Please nourish your happiness and mine by staying here forever. Oh, how did Gopal Kumar feel hearing all of this? Of course, he's continuing to chant his Madan Gopal mantra. And he stayed for some time because it was so wonderful. But it's not Madan Gopal. And so he continued chanting his mantra, and the next thing you know, he's advised to go to Vrindavan. There he'll find Madan Gopal, but on the way you can stop in Dwarka, and when he stops in Dwarka, who should he meet but Narada Muni? And he says to Narada Muni, "O Narada, the best of the Lord's associates in the guise of an exalted sage, I see you just everywhere. In the heavenly planets, in Vaikuntha, and now here, looking just the same. How fascinated I am to see this." Now, while in Dwarka, there's extended conversation, very illuminating conversation between Narada, Uddhava, and Gopakumar. They, Narada and Uddhava, consider Gopakumar more elevated than themselves, that he's eligible for Vrindavan, whereas they aren't. They can visit, but they're not Brijbasis, and he is. So there's very wonderful description. Just like in Vaikuntha, the agents of Lord Vishnu gave extensive. I mean, there's pages and pages and verses of describing the power of the name. And you congratulations, you didn't stay in Tapaloka, although it's very attractive. It's not the same, and here's why it's not the same. It's very detailed, exhaustively detailed description of the distinction between meditation and chanting, the mantra, where one is attracted to see the form of the Lord in person. Very amazing discussion. And here, Narada and Uddhava are both explaining to Gopakumar what's special about Vrindavan, even in contrast to Dwarka. And they bid him well. He eventually goes to Vrindavan, and when he reaches Vrindavan, many things happen, but he eventually sees or meets. First he sees from a distance. It's really fantastic. When he gets to Vrindavan, he doesn't know where he is. And so he asks the people there, "What is this place, and who's the Lord of this place?" And they're silent. And finally he finds someone that answers. They weren't being rude. They were just absorbed in feelings of separation from Krishna because he had gone out to the pasturing grounds with the cows and the cowherd boys. And one lady answered, "See off in the distance, see that cloud of dust? It's Krishna coming back with the cows. Go in that way and you'll meet him. He's the Lord." So finally he meets him in person, and they run towards each other. He calls out, "Gopal!" He starts running. Krishna hears him, sees him. He starts running. He leaped forward and came close to me, compelled by the affection of his helpless devotee. That's him. I fainted in love at seeing him. He caught hold of me by the neck, and suddenly he too fell to the ground. Very beautiful. Another ISKCON painting depicting the same. Madan Gopal is now again with Gopal. And many nice exchanges. Krishna gives him another name, Sarup, not Svarup, but Sarup. And he has him come have prasadam. At Nanda Maharaj's palace, there's Nanda Maharaj. Krishna's on one side, Balaram's on the other side. Mother Yasoda is bringing, and Krishna is handing things right from his plate to Sarup. It's very beautiful, all these details. Besides the painting is beautiful. The narration is really beautiful. There you see Madan Gopal with his flute right behind him, because he's a cowherd boy. and he has a flute. And the conclusion of this this is Gopal Kumar narrating all of this to Mathura Brahmana. And then he says to the Mathura Brahmana, just this morning, early this morning, Sri Radhika Devi herself came and ordered me, Sarup, a Brahmana from Mathura, who is my devotee, is coming to my grove. Go there, the first thing today. Enlighten him with good instructions. Console him and help him quickly attain Krishna's grace. He's just a little cowherd boy. But he's a perfectly realized little cowherd boy. And he is being directly engaged by Srimati Radharani, who considers the Mathura Brahman to be her devotee. Now, the Mathura Brahmana considered himself to be a devotee of Durga, or Kamakya Devi. But Durga, or this particular expansion of Durga, is a partial expansion of Sri Radhika, who is Madan Gopal's eternal consort. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So we mentioned this yesterday evening. Radha has the internal potency of the Lord has a reflection. The reflection is the expansion of the internal potency, and then there's expansions of the reflection. And Kamakya Devi is an expansion of Radharani, who gave the Madan Gopal mantra. It's as if Radharani gave the Madan Gopal mantra, although it was someone else that was the instrument. Kamakya Devi was the instrument. And the purpose of that mantra, which we also receive, is to awaken a desire to be with Krishna again. Or in Radharani's words here, help him quickly attain Krishna's grace. So after this little episode, and Sarup goes to visit Keshigat, and the Brahmin sees him at Keshigat, the Brahmin is very, very ecstatic. He's feeling, Srimati Radharani has accepted me. And he then wants to see Madan Gopal and asks Sarup to help him. And so Sarup places his hand on Mathura Brahmana's head, and he comes to the place where he can realize everything. Now, that's not the normal way that transcendence is imparted, but that's the narration. And he just becomes ecstatic and starts jumping or dancing, and both of them become ecstatic, swooning, and so forth. And lo and behold, they hear a sound of Krishna's flute, and the cowherd boys are coming, and they run towards Krishna, and he meets Krishna. So, Prabhus, take your chanting of Gayatri Mantra very seriously. I mean, it's a narration, and it's one can say, it's the purport or commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Maharaj Parikshit's explanation to his mother of what he heard when he heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. And it's centered around, no surprise, it's centered around the holy name. Specifically in this case, it's the Madan Gopal mantra. But names. And throughout the whole of the Bhagavatam, the names of Krishna are central from beginning, middle, and end, and in between. Along with that comes the description of from name, form, qualities, and pastimes that all become revealed, which was the benediction of Gopal Kumar's guru, that you'll understand everything. And he didn't have to, give him extensive Bhagavatam classes. The mantra and his relationship with Madan Gopal provided people who gave him elaborate teachings and instructions. Of course, he was a very special person, but special persons receive special mercy because his eagerness was very special. So Narada and Uddhava, very elevated teachings. Lord Shiva, very elevated teachings. The Vaikuntha Vasis, the Vishnu Dutas, very elevated teachings. And do we have access to that just by reading Brihat Bhagavatamrita, just as this text says? Anyone who wants to know about the subject matter of devotees, devotional service, and Krishna must read this book. So here we have it. But my warning, as I mentioned this when we discussed the personalities of each of the 6 Goswamis in this very same slide we showed, read Prabhupada's books extensively, which was one of the main messages yesterday midday. Read Prabhupada's books very, very meticulously. And if you don't understand everything, that's okay. Keep reading it. And through time, the effacing of the covering will be yours, and you'll start to understand, along with the mantra, Mahamantra, and the Gayatri mantras that we receive, which includes this Madan Gopal mantra, the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's our combination primarily. There's others. Worshipping the deity form, residing in Vrindavan, and of course serving the devotees, these 5, most powerful. So this narration was in relation purposefully to the gift of the holy name. And let's see if there's some discussion. We've gone for 1 full hour.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
You're on. Go ahead.
Maharaj, we have 2 questions so far. One is a comment from Amrita Kali Mataji regarding the Kukutsta bird, Kukutsta from yesterday.
Okay.
She says, Nityananda Pran Prabhu spoke about this topic of Kukutsa in the Sunday Feast lecture a couple weeks back at Naperville. Prabhu mentioned that Lord Ramachandra asked Kukutsta to fall at Mother Sita's lotus feet, as that's the only way he can be forgiven.
The crow was asked to fall at Mother Sita's feet? Or Kukutsta was asked to fall at Mother Sita's feet?
Kukutsta?
Shatarupa is going to make a call to Nityananda Pran and confirm what Amrita Kelly just reported.
Yes, Maharaj. Amrita Kali Mataji just wrote in and said, I think it's the crow.
Okay. But she's going to check. Yeah, okay. That's nice. That's nice. It does make more sense. Next.
The next is a question from Kirti Prabhu.
From Kirti, okay.
Who asks, did Sarup continue chanting even after meeting Lord Krishna in Vrindavan?
What do you think? Of course. Next.
Thank you, Raj. The next question is from Yolanda Mataji, who asks,
Say her name again, please.
I asked her, Marge, and she said Yolanda.
Yolanda, not Yolandi. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Yolanda. Fine. Thanks.
She asks, is there any significance in Gopakumar starting his journey in Vrindavan, the destination he attained at the end as well? Is it that his desires took him away from his satisfaction of being in Vrindavan?
That's not the reason. Meaning, is the question, was the purpose of his appearing in Vrindavan so that he would feel separation from Vrindavan when he wasn't there? Is that what the question is?
Could you repeat that, Mar? Sorry.
Yeah. Is her question, is the reason that Gopakumar appeared in Vrindavan was so that he would feel separation from Vrindavan when he wasn't in Vrindavan?
It's not clear to me, Marge. Can I read the question again?
Maybe you ask her for clarification.
Okay.
So she's hearing. Maybe she can unmute herself and speak it.
Yes, Marge.
Hi, Krishna Gurmaj. First of all, I'm sorry about the confusion about my name to both you and Kamali Mataji.
Well, I was the cause, not her. Go ahead.
No, that was not my question. It just strikes me as odd that he started his journey in Vrindavan and then he went to all these different places with his mantra or thanks to his mantra, and then his final destination was again Vrindavan, but then in the spiritual world. So I was just wondering if there's any significance to that.
Well, I just saw an interview it was a discussion between Satchidananda Swami and Burijan Prabhu about the upcoming Govardhan retreat, the virtual one. And Burijan showed us in this, YouTube session, the title of his book for this year, 2022. And it's something like this, Sanatan Goswami, from Vrindavan back to Vrindavan. Meaning, he left Vrindavan to meet with Lord Chaitanya, and then after meeting with Lord Chaitanya, he was sent back to Vrindavan. And so there was there was a mystery that there's part of the title, the mystery journey from Vrindavan back to Vrindavan. So there may be some connection between Gopakumar's starting in Vrindavan and going back to Vrindavan. But, Gopakumar was looking for Madan Gopal having received his mantra. And his mind was always in Brajabhumi. His mind was always in Vrindavan, even when he wasn't in Vrindavan. Similarly, Sanatan Goswami wanted to be with Lord Chaitanya, who was in Puri, and the exchange with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri left him with nothing but absolute surrender to Lord Chaitanya, who wanted him to go back to Vrindavan. I mean, he could have easily stayed in Puri, but Lord Chaitanya wanted him to go to Vrindavan. So he went to Vrindavan. So there may be some connection like that. If you want, you can phrase a question which I can then forward to Burijan and then see if Burijan concurs, because I'm sure he's familiar with Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but his book is, as far as I understand it, it's sections from Chaitanya Charitamrita, because he already completed the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Next is Chaitanya Charitamrita, and his heart is moved by Sanatana Goswami and his journey from Vrindavan back to Vrindavan, the mysterious journey from Vrindavan back to Vrindavan, something like that. So you phrase a question, and I'll probably edit it a little bit and then forward it on to Burijan and see if he has the same understanding. Because it's in relation to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that's your question, but there may be some connection with Sanatana Goswami's life.
Thank you very much.
Komati.
Yes, Raj. Prematarangini Mataji says the title is Tests Along the Path, Sanatana Goswami's Mysterious Journey from Vrindavan to Vrindavan, and that it's the title of his talk and not a book, Marge.
Oh, it's the title of a talk, not a book. Oh, I misunderstood. Okay. Still, I'll ask the question.
Thank you, Marge. The next question is from Radha Kunja Bihari Prabhu. Oh, sorry, it's a comment. He says, I want to express my heartfelt thanks for clarifying my query regarding the Shurpanaka Kubja and the Lord's reciprocation with her.
Okay, next.
The next question is from Sachimata Mataji, who asks, we heard Brihad Bhagavatamrita is the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, narrated by Parikshit Maharaj to his mother. But this story of Brihad Bhagavatamrita does not come in Srimad Bhagavatam. How do we understand it?
Oh, no problem. It's commentary. It's explaining, here's the question that was being asked. See at the bottom of the page, please extract the essence of what Shukadev has taught you. So it's not in the Bhagavatam, it's the essence of what the Bhagavatam is. Next.
The next question, Marge, is from Parameshwari Mataji, who'd like to present her question.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. I was thinking like how you said Gopakumara, when he saw Lord Jagannath, he was very attracted, and he was slackening in his japa. But I'm thinking that when we chant the japa, it is for to awaken our attraction for Krishna. So is it that when we chant, that attraction will make us chant more? But here in Gopakumara's case, he was neglecting. Is that the reason that his guru has to come again and remind him?
I'm not sure what your question is. That's why I'm pausing. Because it's A or B. A, it was just a particular circumstance connected with Gopakumar that he became so attracted to serving Jagannath that because he became so attracted to serving Jagannath, he was investing less attention in his mantra. Or B, it's just natural that anyone who does mantra chanting, they slacken in their mantra chanting. I think it has to do with A. It happens, and if it happens, then one can't that we make a certain kind of progress in Krishna Bhakti, and our investing of energy and attention and faith, etc., in the means of spiritual elevation, namely the chanting of our mantra, our attention may diminish. He didn't stop chanting, but his intensity of absorption in the mantra may have diminished, which happens to us. That's my understanding. And therefore, some method or another, not necessarily Guru has to come and sit by the side of the ocean and pull you back, but arrangements will be made to help us. At least the opportunity for arrangements to be made will be provided to help us get back on track. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
The next question is from Achyuta Baba Prabhu, who asks, you had mentioned that Gopal Kumar did not know how to chant a mantra, and this sparked an inquiry. I have seen some newcoming Westerners doing their chanting, but with no audible pronunciation. Possibly they're whispering, but I was unable to hear it. I believe chanting would equate with sound. In other cases, the pronunciation might be very strange. Is this something that we should address with them, or is it better to let it go because this new process of chanting in itself might be very foreign or uncomfortable, and a suggestion might cause an offense? Possibly my assumption is wrong, and these two things are not important. Let's do the pronunciation part. Pronunciation is not so important, otherwise Prabhupada would have emphasized it. It's not a 0, it's not a 10. Prabhupada commented, in different cultures, the pronunciation of the name Krishna will sound different. For example, people in South America, the way that they pronounce Krishna's name, or the French, the way they pronounce Krishna's name, or even, in India, some people in South India and in North India, they pronounce differently. Now, it's not a 0, but it's not a 10 either. That is, Krishna will know who you're calling. So what's more important than pronunciation is the consciousness behind calling. Pronunciation can be refined, that's nice. It's a good idea, that's nice. But it's not essential. Not that you can't hit the center of the target if your pronunciation is not precise. And supposing a Sanskrit scholar or grammarian were to associate with someone from one of these places I mentioned and refine and correct their pronunciation of Krishna's name, does that mean that the before and after, the after is going to be better and the before was lesser? It's just like this little exchange that happened the last while and how to pronounce Yolanda's name. It's just personal. I would want to be able to pronounce someone's name the way that they like their name to be pronounced, even it may be a different name that I'm accustomed to. It's so in a personal way, we want to pronounce Krishna's name nicely, but more important than the pronunciation is the heart's commitment and direction towards Krishna. And then the audibly or not, I don't think it's something you need to get into. It's something that can be brought out in a general way, in a discussion group or a class or something like that. And another recommendation, very important recommendation, is if you see a newer devotee doing something
that seems to you to be, needing some attention, some course correction or something like that, it's not a good idea you go to that person. It is a good idea that if you feel that, you go to somebody who has a relationship with that person that's like the one who instructs and guides them, the one who they look up to. And then that person can decide if and when and how something should be brought or could or might not be brought to their attention for whatever the reason. Because they have a relationship with the person, they understand the heart, and the person has regard and respect for that person. It's the best way to make some correction when you see a newcomer that, aside from how they chant japa, how they do anything. Best recommendation is, if you feel it's important, you communicate what you feel is important to someone who they look up to. And that person can then decide whether to say something or say nothing, and how to say it and when to say it and so forth. That's a new person course correction recommendation for all of us. Next.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is from Amrita Keli Mataji, who would like to present.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I was thinking about this video that you asked us to watch, Guru Maharaj, about the expression of gratitude.
Uh-huh.
It was really very moving, and I'm actually connecting that to Gopakumar's very deep gratitude, irrespective of whatever circumstances. It's so deep that he didn't move from that position of chanting the mantra, just being on that grateful platform. I'm also connecting to my question the other day about feeling and expression. I have to some extent for gratitude, but being able to do that, I'm actually connecting that maybe it's not deep enough. I just feel that, I express it and feel happy and kind of be done with it. And I don't go to the next step. Okay, what is that? I can actually do something either for this person directly or in that mode of gratitude. So I think I have two parts, Guru Maharaj. First thing is, of course, how to deepen. And the other thing is between the expression and internalizing that mode of gratitude. While it's important to express the gratitude, I feel in that process, I'm expressing and it's kind of done on that surface level. It's not going deeper. If you could kindly share something. Thank you.
Well, how to go deeper and how to make it genuine. One answer is on the theme of acceptance and progress. I'll tell a little story, and I think you'll be able to understand what I'm saying in response to your question. A few years ago, I was considering graduate schools for college, maybe 50 years ago. And so one of the places I went to see about visiting some possible graduate schools was visiting Boston. And one of the places, so when I was in Boston, I'll give a little detail. I drove all the way from upstate New York to Boston in a Volkswagen Bug. And there were two people in the car with me that knew each other really well. And they had some friends that had a loft. So we stayed in their loft. And on the windowsill of the loft was a little tiny, one of those really tiny carvings of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. I mean, like less than an inch tall. But I knew who they were. because in the preaching center at the university, the undergraduate university, they had Jagannath deities, so I knew who they were. So I took it as a sign I should visit the temple. So I visited the temple. And when I visited the temple, not only I saw Lord Jagannath, but there was a very festive mood that particular evening because Guru Das, who had been with Prabhupada for quite some time, was visiting in Boston. No, it was Brahmananda. And some of you may know who Brahmananda is, or at least you'll know that he was of massive physical stature. And so there was a kirtan that evening in the temple that I happened to go that evening when he was there. And the kirtan was just, the devotees were bouncing off the walls and ceiling in very jubilant mood. And I was this, kid visiting the temple. So I was kind of like leaned against the wall and observing, the festival going on in the temple room before Lord Jagannath. And the temple president, who at that time was Satsvarup Das Adhikari, walked over to me, extended his hand, and very gently invited me to join the dancing. And being a shy, reclusive kind of personality, I wasn't so inclined. But he was so gentle and so kind. Then instead of just leaning against the wall over in the corner, I got up and, joined the kirtan and started dancing. And I started to feel the happiness that they were feeling, although I'm just a new guy. And it wasn't, it was meaningful. It was genuine. It was an experience. It wasn't as deep as they were feeling because they were just a new guy. But, so Prabhupada said, if you're not feeling ecstasy, dance and you'll feel ecstasy. So there's my answer to your question. If it's not deep and profound and you're expressing gratitude and then it's, do and then you move on, there's a beginning. You exercise your behaviors and speech in alignment with a higher principle, and you'll feel something. And it'll just be, a preliminary feeling. But, it's the beginning. You begin, it's the, acceptance and progress. You move in the right direction. And it's helpful to move in the right direction, to have the kind association and guidance of someone who is a little further advanced along the path, or at least a peer who can support you and encourage you and move along the path from where you are to where you want to go. Acceptance and progress. So that's how to become more deep. You exercise on a proper principle, ideally in alignment with the goal. At the heart, at the heart level is although it's far away, here's what the goal is. I want to have this experience of something that's genuine, and right now it's not. But I want. So aligned with that goal, then you abhyasa. Okay? Hare Krishna. Next.
The next question is from Giri Varadhari Prabhu, who asks, the Madan Gopal story reveals that the Lord and his devotees could not stop Gopakumar's free will to chant. The first question is, does it mean his free will cannot be controlled by the Lord himself?
Well, you know the answer to that. Free will isn't free will if it's controlled. It's free will. There's not unlimited boundaries to free will, but free will is free will. He doesn't control your or mine or anyone's free will. He reciprocates, he encourages, but he allows us free will. Next.
The second part of the question, Marge, was Lord Narayan addressed him as friend, but in Vaikuntha Dham, there's only Dasya relationships. How do we understand
Oh,
this?
that's easy. Here's how it's easy. All of the expansions of Krishna are Krishna's expansions, including the spiritual master, including the Lord of Vaikuntha, including all of the manifestations of Krishna. They're extensions of Krishna. So he, Lord Narayan, was reciprocating with Gopakumar in a way that he knew was Gopakumar's heart or his nature or his ultimate destination. He encouraged him, stay here. Gopakumar didn't. He went to Madan Gopal's abode. But he's Madan Gopal. Lord Narayan is Madan Gopal. Or the expansion of Madan Gopal, and just a particular feature. Next.
Thank you, Marge. The next question is from Ramananda Prabhu, who asks, if pronouncing is not important and consciousness is more important, then Dwashta, the father of Vishnu, pronounced wrongly, but his consciousness was to kill Indra. Then how should we take it?
Oh, because Karma Kanda has a different set of rules. And details are very important for material activities, and they're not as important in spiritual activities. Like this discussion, the story about the austere Brahmin, Lord Chaitanya saying, it's not by not drinking milk that you win my favor. It's I'll accept anyone who takes shelter of me, whoever, whatever. So it's the consciousness that's important in transcendence, and supposing one is not in transcendence. Twashta was not in transcendence. Therefore, in Karma Kanda rituals, yamas and niyamas are very important. But with chanting of the holy name, yamas and niyamas are not so important. Doesn't mean we trash them, but it's not the essence. Next.
Marge, we have about 4 more questions. Is that okay?
Okay, let's see. We can take a couple. It's time.
Okay. The next question is from Amara Mataji, who asks, I'm sorry. This pastime is a very powerful inspiration, Marge. I really wonder where else I would have heard it. My question is, what was the factor behind Gopakumar's simple faith that took him to Krishna, leaving behind all lesser attractions? Was it his guru's blessings, his own determination, or just his simplicity?
Well, it's all of the above. A general rule of thumb, you've heard me say this n number of times, it's effort and mercy. It's both. He had a disposition and an aptitude, and there's the mantra, which is the experience of the mercy, and he was the combination of the two. The mantra and his guru's wish, because behind the guru's wish was the Lord of Vaikuntha's wish, which was Madan Gopal's wish, or Srimati Radharani's wish. So effort and mercy, combination. Next.
Thank you, Marge. The next question is from Akshay Prabhu, who asks, what should be one's consciousness during kirtan? It seems that the consciousness during japa is more focused, but during kirtan, it could be lost because of because the kirtan is very pleasing.
There's many ways to answer that question. What should one's consciousness be during kirtan? And rather than the so many different possibilities, just leave it at principle. Krishna is to be pleased. When one is dancing, it's not just so we can experience, good aerobic exercise, or the joy of the friendship that comes from dancing with friends. And on so many other. So the consciousness is Krishna should be pleased. And you can say that's part of the consciousness of chanting japa also. Now there's other senses involved in kirtan, and other social interactive factors involved in kirtan. But Krishna should be pleased. And then for different persons, it's going to manifest in different ways. So that's the should. Krishna the pleasing Krishna should be at the center. Next.
The next question is from Kirti Prabhu, who asks, what was the motivation for Sarup to continue chanting even after meeting Lord Krishna? Was it out of gratitude to his guru or something else?
Well, you asked the question before, didn't you? Did he chant after? Was that your question? So why does when you have love for someone, do you stop loving them? Or do you continue loving them? And the things that make up your love for them, do you continue those things? Or stop once, okay, the bell rings, now it's love and see you later. It's part of his relationship. That's why. The relationship with Madan Gopal is not different than the relationship with the Madan Gopal mantra. You don't stop. Switch horses or something. It's the same entity in different features. By the way, that verse that I couldn't remember, Parabrahman and what's the other term? Shastra? Shabda Brahman. Parabrahman and Shabda Brahman. So he was in contact with Parabrahman, but doesn't stop the Shabda Brahman. They're two features of the same person. Next.
Thank you, Marsh. The next question is from Amar Mataji, who asks, many times I do not want to take favors, considering how will I be able to repay them? Or the other person will start expecting from me to. And if I am not able to fulfill that expectation, our relationship will be affected. So I better not take any favors. I know this is not a proper attitude and need help to understand.
Become gracious. Now, grace is a factor of culture. And only cultured people know what grace is, experientially and practically. But when you awaken your Krishna bhakti, then grace becomes one of the decorations of your character. So think, when someone offers something, not all these other thoughts, think what will be pleasing to Krishna, and exercise that muscle. What will be pleasing to Krishna muscle, your bhakti muscle. And then you'll have a course correction in place. I think we're going to end there. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.